welcome back to my channel. I am so glad that you decided to click on this video. Today I'm going to be doing my February wrap up. I know that February actually is the shortest month, but I feel like it just absolutely flew by. January felt like it was 6 months long and February felt like it was a week long, but here we are in March. So this February I read a total of 10 books, which for me is like not a ton. I mean, I feel like I usually read between 12 and 18. Weird numbers to choose, but that's that. And so I feel like that's like lower, but I don't know. This month has just been really, really busy. I've been doing a lot of working and visiting my parents and then a bunch of other stuff. And so yeah, it's just been kind of slow goings. So this is going to be a shorter video than you're used to, so lucky you. So while I might not have the best quantity of books this month, I really had a good month quality-wise. I read 2 5-star books, 2 4.5-star books, 4 4-star books, 1 3.5-star book, and 1 2-star book. So we had one that was a bummer, but we'll get to that. As far as format goes, it was actually very well-rounded. I read 3 physical books, I read 3 ebooks, I read 3 audiobooks, and then 1 book I did kind of a hybrid of the audiobook and the physical book. So pretty spread out nicely there. Got some exciting books to talk about, so let's just get started. The first book I read was Here in Avalon by Tara Isabella Burton. This I read the physical copy of, and I gave it 3.5 stars. This book is slow-paced literary fiction following a woman named Rose who lives a very safe and stable life after having a chaotic and just kind of crazy upbringing. When her flighty and bohemian sister enters her life again, she says, I've changed, I'm not like that anymore, I'm going to be serious and kind of just settle down a bit and grow up. But instead, she gets involved in like a mysterious cultish cabaret group, and Rose kind of like infiltrates it to get her sister back. So I did enjoy this at the time, but in retrospect, I can't actually remember that much about it, which is kind of making me think that maybe I didn't like it as much as I thought I did. I did love the overall tone of the story. It's very dark and theatrical and moody, but this one relies a lot on vibes and not so much on plot. This was a good book to kind of get wrapped up in, swept away by, but a year from now, I don't even think I'll remember that I read this book. The next book I read is What Is Mine by Lynn Liao Butler. I read the ebook and I gave it 4.5 stars. This follows a woman named Hope who, with her husband, has adopted her nephew, Luca, whose mother was very troubled and she just passed away. And then one day, he is outside in the driveway playing basketball and hanging out with his dog, and they go missing. Naturally, Hope will do whatever she can to get him back. But we also get the perspective in this book of like a unknown character who knows a lot about the situation. So I like this a lot more than this author's last release, which was called Someone Else's Life. First half of this book was somewhat slow, and I did start to get kind of annoyed with some of Hope's actions, but things kicked into high gear in part 2, and I was completely on the edge of my seat. The ending was awesome, and every time I thought I had all of the twists figured out, I did not. This is a great book to pick up if you are a big thriller fan. The next book I read was Black Buck by Matteo Ascaripour. This I listened to on audio and I gave it 5 stars. I'm gonna go ahead and just direct you to my dedicated reading vlog and not spend too much time discussing this. But this was my 5-star reread for the month of February. If you are new to my channel or if you just missed it, I've been rereading one of my previous 5-star reads every month and kind of seeing if it still holds up to me. I will link this one up above and of course in the description box below. But this one was definitely a 5-star read for me again. It was a lot different than I remembered it being, but that almost made it more fun to read because I was kind of clueless. So this is a satire that follows a young black man named Darren who works at a Starbucks and is one day has an interaction with a man who runs a startup where he is essentially offered an opportunity to kind of climb the ranks as a salesman in this startup company. But he ends up being what essentially amounts to like the token black guy. That's a super simplified explanation, but just go watch that video and you will get a lot more information from that. Next, I read The Exangelicals by Sarah McCammon. I gave this 4 stars and I read it as an ebook. This is a book about a topic that I've really been interested in a lot lately, which is evangelical Christianity and especially those who have decided to leave the church, what life is like for them, and many of them kind of take on the moniker of ex-evangelicals, which is obviously where the title of the book comes from. I really enjoyed this. I was expecting it to be more of a memoir than it was, which is a lot more researched and fact-based versus her own lived experiences. To me, that would have been a 5-star book. This, like I said, is a 4-star for me. Still really, really good though. It was very well written, and I loved how she highlighted that leaving the church is so much more than just not sharing the same beliefs anymore, but potentially losing your entire community and support system. The author spends a lot of time covering the Trumpification of Christianity, and I found that to be really interesting. And I don't know, I really also enjoyed how that fundamentalist Christians aligning themselves with Trump had really a huge impact on how many people ended up leaving evangelical Christianity. So really, really interesting discussions, and if that interests you at all, definitely pick this one up. Next, I read Like It Never Happened by Jeff Hoffman. I read the ebook and I gave this 4 stars. This book follows 3 high school friends who reunite at the funeral of Kevin, the 4th member of their group. And all of this takes place 30 years after this big event happened in a Burger King parking lot that we get bits and pieces of. By the end, of course, we know what happened, but we don't really know anything to begin with. So at the funeral, they meet Kevin's widow, who is also a journalist, who says that she knows what they did all those years ago and threatens to upend their lives because her husband ended up dying of a drug addiction that kind of came to be because of the guilt he felt over this thing that happened. So I'm not exactly sure how this is being marketed, but I thought it was going to be a thriller going into it, and it's definitely more of a domestic drama. I think it worked really well, and the author gave us a lot of really in-depth background on all of the characters, which might not be something everyone resonates with, but I thought it was really necessary so that we could kind of know exactly what each guy stood to lose if this was to be published in a newspaper or anything. I also felt like this did a really, really good job of highlighting how harmful the boys will be boys mentality is. Really harmful, and especially how things that we do as teenagers, as kids, can honestly impact the rest of your life. Next, I read The Gunslinger by Stephen King. I listened to the audiobook and I gave this 2 stars. So this is the first book of Stephen King's beloved Dark Tower series, and I was literally confused the entire time from beginning to end. I honestly never thought I would want to read the Dark Tower series because it's fantasy and that's not really my vibe at all. But I figured if I'm gonna be out here touting myself as some kind of Stephen King expert, that I should probably have at least an idea of one of his masterpieces. So here we are. This whole book felt like a fever dream, and they just plopped me down in the middle of a story that was already in progress, and I literally had no idea what was going on for the entire book. Honestly, if I did not have some intense persuasion from some friends, I would have DNF'd this and just called it quits on the series. But the good news is that I am about 2/3 of the way done with the second book in the series, and I'm loving it. So fingers crossed that goes well, but yeah, this one was not it. I don't even think I really needed to read the whole book to understand where the second one was. I could have read a Wikipedia synopsis, so maybe do that. I don't know. Next, I read Better Left Unsent by Leah Lewis, and I read the physical book and I gave this 4 stars. This was a very cute romance kind of women's fiction book. It follows a woman named Millie who kind of as a therapeutic technique will draft emails to people and not send them, but that are kind of revealing her inner thoughts and what she wishes she could say. But after a big computer malfunction or network malfunction, they all get sent. And so then she has to try to get her life back in order, apologizing to everyone that she insulted, and it goes from there. I like this a lot. It was a really quick read, but I also somehow think it could be quite a bit shorter, which doesn't really seem to make sense, but trust me. It also seemed like a lot of the conflict in the book was Millie just being embarrassed and being you're so mad at me, oh my gosh, you're so mad at me, when people were okay, it's cool, we're squaresies, we figured it out. but she like kept insisting that they were all mad at her. I don't know. Even when it seemed like things had been resolved. Also, I thought it was a little bit strange that like, okay, you've done this thing with the draft emails, but like, don't put their email address in there like you're actually gonna send it. I don't know. I'm thinking too hard about it, but anyways, it was really, really cute. I feel like I just said only like moderate to negative things, but I promise this is really cute. You should definitely read it. Next, I read The Housemade Secret by Frida McFadden. This I read the physical copy of, and I gave it 4.5 stars. So I do not believe in guilty pleasures, because I think that if something is pleasurable for you and harms no one else, then there is no need for guilt. But if I did believe in guilty pleasures, they would be Frida McFadden's books. The writing is not great, the stories are not complex, but her books are just impossible to put down, and this was no exception. This is the follow-up to The Housemaid, which I'm sure you could have guessed, and it follows another character named Millie, who is the same main character from the first one, as she starts working as a housekeeper for a different couple. Immediately, she starts to notice some weird goings-on and decides that she needs to figure out what they are. So this book was exactly what I needed at the time that I read it. It's fast-paced, simple, popcorn thriller, and it was like the perfect vibe to take my mind off of real life. This could be read as a standalone, but the first one's also incredibly entertaining, so I say read them both. And there's actually a third one coming out in June. Next, I read Desperation by Stephen King. I listened to the audiobook and I gave it 4 stars. So I am slowly but surely trying to crawl my way through all of Stephen King's books. This one has a pretty simple plot. So like the lone police officer in this teeny tiny town of Desperation, Nevada, keeps pulling people over and then either torturing them, killing them, taking them to jail, which is essentially kidnapping them. And that's kind of all you need to know. I honestly wouldn't say that you should even try to learn anything else, because this one I really didn't know about and just kind of let it take me on a ride. Super fast paced, really interesting characters. I really had a good time reading this. And the last book that I finished in the month of February is Ellipsis by Vanessa Lawrence. This is the one that I listened to the audiobook and I also read the physical copy, and I gave this 5 stars. So I'm actually confused because this is currently sitting at 3.42 stars on Goodreads, which I honestly feel personally offended by because I liked this book so much. It's one of those like millennial coming of age stories, as like, you know, kind of re-finding yourself in your 30s. And I really enjoy that as a storyline. It follows a woman named Lily who is a journalist at this like dying magazine. The whole industry is kind of dying. I hope no one takes offense to that. When she meets Billy, who is this charming, confident, super successful cosmetics mogul who offers her mentorship to Lily. But she ends up kind of infiltrating Lily's life in ways that are not what she bargained for, I guess. So I just thought this was really entertaining. I didn't really know where it was going. What I thought going in was it was going to be something Devil Wears Prada-esque, and it wasn't completely not that, but it was just definitely a little more balanced as far as the like relationship went between the main characters. Really great queer rep, really great Asian American rep, and I thought this was fantastic. I really hope that once more people have read it, it kind of gets a higher rating. I know that Goodreads ratings don't actually matter that much, but I don't know. If I hadn't read this, I looked it up, I would have probably not read it based on just its Goodreads score. So I think that this one definitely deserves a little more praise than it's gotten thus far. So those are the 10 books that I read in the month of February. I would love to know what your favorite was. How'd the month go for you? Any favorites? Any books you really, really didn't like? Read any of the same books as me? You know, let me hear it all in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, it would mean a lot to me if you would, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!